I could not believe what I was reading. A random internet commenter had written something so awful about the SNES classic Donkey Kong Country that it spurred me to make this very video. Oh, and what do you know? It's just turned 30 years old too. What I didn't know is how much this 30-year-old is covered in banana bruises, and there were far more people bruising it than just one random internet commenter. But the biggest problem I discovered as I played this game through again was...
In many ways, you're absolutely damn right.
In the 90s, this game was more popular than flannel shirts, but now it looks like a dropped bowl of nachos. Its problems stick out like a bright red tie. While Mario basks in retro glory, how do we get so divided on Donkey Kong Country? Is it standard internet tribalism at play? Do both sides have a point? What I need is a third opinion, and then a fourth opinion, and this may cause a bit of an argument.
I'm the first opinion, actually, and allow me to be the voice of reason. You see, not much has changed in 30 years. To sell a video game, you need jaw-dropping visuals, a tough challenge to attract elitism and deflect detractors, you need to tie it to an existing popular franchise, and ride a trendy, in-vogue game style. DKC did all these things.
Well, I guess I'm the fourth opinion then. And I can think of 100 games that did well without doing any of those things.
Name one.
Animal Crossing.
Name another.
PUBG.
Lol. What you don't need a game to do is play perfectly. This was even more the case 30 years ago.
Do you remember that level in DKC? You know which one I mean. Snow Barrel Blast, or as I always called it, that level. The one with the difficulty curve so steep Ubisoft could botch a franchise on it. The only reason it never made me throw my SNES in the air and roundhouse it out of the window were the jaw-dropping graphics and that divine soundtrack. It was an experience unlike anything else, especially coming from my creaking Super Nintendo. But 30 years later, the flaws are sharp and held right against your throat. While games like Super Mario Bros. 3 have aged like a fine red wine, DKC has aged like spilt lager.
Donkey Kong Country breaks every single platform game rule there is. Except full frontal nudity. The background is often indistinct from the foreground. It's never obvious where the edge of the platforms are. The difficulty curve is ridiculous. The Kongs are too floaty, lack any sense of weight. Swapping between them is clunky. Newly introduced mechanics are used as skill gates. There are cheap off-screen deaths. The boss battles are The hit detection is off. The enemies are repetitive.
Have you finished?
I only stopped because I felt an aneurysm coming on.
If you break games down like this, then of course the problems are going to be overwhelming. We should judge them on how they were in their prime. Everything's going to age, and that's okay. When someone picks up Donkey Kong Country for the first time and wonders what all the fuss was about, let's tell them. Tell them what it was like 30 years ago.
Yeah, but then the little goes online and bleats about how overrated it is to other little and the cycle continues. Some things need to be put to bed. You enjoy it, fine. But when you're dead, everyone who comes after you will think people in the 90s were just and forget all about it.
Hell!
Oh,
Saying you had to be there is the king of cop-outs. I get it. But if you weren't there, you're probably never going to understand. Hearing this music. Then seeing effects like these was overwhelming. Noticing the flaws it had would be like noticing how hard the seat is on a roller coaster. Yes, it's uncomfortable, but I just don't care.
Or like noticing how cold your nose is during a firework display.
Or how much money you've spent on hookers well wasted.
Donkey Kong Country is a snapshot in time. Along with the two other games in the trilogy, it created waves that have all but died 30 years on. Yes, perhaps at the time it leaned too heavily on its form, and unlike the Mario, Metroid and Zelda games from the era, it's a much harder sell for the generations that followed. Even its own franchise casts a shadow. I hope somewhere out there there's a kid who gets it and sees Donkey Kong Country for what it is, flaws and all, like the cheesiest of 80s action movies. Once you acquire the taste, it never gets old.
So what did that random commenter say from the beginning of the video anyway?
Oh, he just said the game was and that Candy Kong was sexy. Pervert. She's pretty sexy though, and the game is And if you love Nintendo and don't mind having a laugh while doing so, come and join us by subscribing. And if you agree with me about Donkey Kong Country, sound off in the comments and I'll read them. If you don't agree, sleep with one eye open and your buttocks clenched. See you next time!